What's up YouTube? I'm Zach Kramer with Cool Cars for Sale, bringing you the coolest cars for sale on the internet. Today, we're reviewing something very, very special. It is an R35 GTR. If you don't know already, this is the 2017 Facelift GTR, and the topic of today's video is it worth paying a premium for the Facelift GTR rather than the Pre Facelift? Now, the Facelift started in 2017, so it's a relatively new car, and as we know, the GTR has been running for 11 years, since 2009. Not much has changed, especially with the interior. So when they released the Facelift in 2017, it was a pretty big deal. As we know, navigation, infotainment, and all those things were very outdated on the original version of the GTR. So on this particular version, they fixed all the problems. Alright, so let's jump right into it. The main reason everybody loves these things is right here. The 3.8 liter, very famous V6. It's a twin turbo V6 and it makes 565 horsepower at the crank. It's only a few horsepower more than the pre-facelift, but they do include a couple of extras on this car that used to be options on the previous car. For example, this car comes stock with a titanium exhaust, and that used to be an option. Alright, so this particular car is actually upgraded with the Meisner shaft exhaust, which is an extremely nice exhaust. It sounds fantastic. This particular car comes on an airlift suspension. As you can see, the car is literally on the ground. I can't even put my hand underneath it. So just look how amazing and well put together this hardline tank setup is. I mean, you can see here we have the airlift performance tank, and then we have all the hard lines. It's a really nice trunk setup. And honestly, it's not using a lot of space in the trunk. The trunk is still very usable. That's one of the things that we love about the GTR, is you get a supercar, if you will, and it is completely dailyable. With the Facelift GTR, like this one, there's a couple of different things about the interior that we need to make note of. The first is this infotainment screen right here. It's completely updated. It's still touch screen like the old one. However, you actually get this little knob here, which is a lot easier to use when you're driving rather than trying to touch all the buttons on the screen. A lot of very popular cars have this, BMW, Mercedes, all those cars, and it's extremely, extremely useful. Another thing to note is the steering wheel itself. The paddles are now directly attached to the steering wheel, just like in your Ferraris and Lamborghinis, instead of being mounted over here so that when you turn, it turns with you and it's easier to drive the car. The actual gauges of this car are very similar to the pre-facelift, but you get a little more carbon fiber. You get carbon fiber here now, you get carbon fiber on the gauges itself. It looks very nice. I'm not sure if the pre-facelift had that or not, but regardless, it is really beautiful on this red and black interior setup. So one of the cool things about the GTR is you get this massive subwoofer right behind you, and of course it's made by Bose, so the quality is very, very good. One of the big things about the GTR that people always complained about is you have this amazing supercar, but the quality in the interior was never on par with the the Ferraris and the Lamborghinis and even the higher end Mercedes. This car came out in 2009. They were still making the SLR McLaren in 2009, and even that interior was much nicer. With the 2017 facelift, I would definitely say that the car is now on par with the likes of those other supercars. We are driving the GTR. Let me tell you, from first impressions, I've driven several pre-facelift GTRs. One of the biggest things about this car is the addition of a comfort mode. And I gotta say, it really truly does work. It is extremely comfortable compared to the pre-facelift cars. If you are going to daily the GTR, this is a must. I mean, they developed this thing completely on the Nürburgring, and I mean, the pre-facelift car is just so horrible to drive, to daily, not to drive, but to daily. I mean, it's really tough, and this just feels so different. It feels nice. Let's take it around the corner here and see what we got. Wow. Wow. It grips very nice. Woo! That is nice. That's fun. One of the things to note about this particular car, as I said before, is the Miser shaft exhaust. There is a slight drone with the Miser shaft exhaust, but I gotta tell you, it sounds fantastic. I mean, I am just, every time, you don't even have to floor it. We're only going 30 right now, and it's cracking, it's popping. I mean, just listen to that. It sounds unbelievable. I am truly, truly in love with the sound of this car. It's a lot of fun. We've been driving this car around town for the last 5 to 10 minutes. It's really nice. I mean, Nissan did a fantastic job of making this car more civilized. I love that. Something else to note about this car is that it is on the airlift suspension. I like the look of bags. I do not really enjoy how they drive usually. On this car, it was so well done, so professionally installed, that you don't even realize that it's on bags. I mean, I was taking that turn pretty nice over there, and it felt like stock suspension. It felt really nice and tight. It just felt good, honestly. No complaints there. It does make a little bit of noise. You can hear the compressor every so often, but again, that's not a big deal. When you put a lot of modifications into these cars, that's what you expect. One of the biggest complaints about the GTR is the transmission and how loud it is inside the cockpit. I have to say, they did a lot of upgrades to the facelift, and you can still hear it inside here, but definitely not as much. It's not as much of a raw experience as the previous model, but honestly, if you're buying something to daily, or to drive around all the time like most people do with their GTRs, then that's not really an issue. I kind of like that they toned it down a little bit, because if you, let's say, are driving an R8, you expect it to be smooth and luxurious as an R8 is. It's one of the most dailyable supercars on the market. The GTR, in my opinion, is the best comparison to the R8. And honestly, it's not as boring to drive as people say. Everyone says, oh, the GTR drives for you, it's like a computer game. I disagree. I think that it is a very nice, fun car that you just can't open up because it has 565 horsepower. You're not opening it up unless you're on a racetrack. You know, these back roads, if you're using all that power, you're gonna slide into a tree. You don't really want to do that. So I think, honestly, it is an amazing dailyable supercar. Do I think that the pre-facelift is better value? I do, because these are still expensive. But honestly, this particular car has so many modifications. I think it's definitely, and it was taken care of by the guy. He owns a detail shop. Personally, I would pay what he's asking. He's asking $100,000. I mean, for the quality of the bags that he put in here and the Meister shaft exhaust and the tune, it's definitely worth what he's asking. Let's give it a little gas here, see what she can do. Holy shit! My God. So, something I noticed there is it's kind of like a BMW. On the lower end of the revs, it's not that fast, and just like a BMW, when the Vanos kicks in at around 4,000, it takes off like a freaking rocket ship. That was incredible. Very, very fast. It honestly, I've driven some very fast cars, and that surprised me, in part because of the tune. I'm not sure what tune is on this vehicle. I'll ask the owner when we get back, but it was definitely very fast. It's definitely faster than 565 horsepower. Honestly, just from feel, I would say it's close to 650, 700. I truly love driving this car. It honestly is extremely, extremely comfortable. It's a little bit bumpy, but as to be expected with a car like this. And it definitely bops around downtown. I mean, we're going through back roads, we're in downtown, we're putting it through the paces, and everything you would expect from a supercar, it has. Everything you would expect from a car you want a daily, it also has. Something I noticed while driving around is the looks and the attention that this car brings. I noticed a lot of people are looking or breaking a lot of necks in this car. It's not as conspicuous as a BMW M5 or something comparable in the range, but it definitely gets attention, and I honestly am a big fan of the look. Everyone says, the car was developed way back in like 2008, released in 2009. The look is stale. I think in 2009, when this car came out, it was way ahead of its time. And I think now in 2020, the car is not stale. I don't think it's stale at all. You don't really see too many of these around, number one. And I think the design was so futuristic in 2009 that it has held the test of time. It really, really has.
So let's go back to our conversation about, is it worth it to buy a facelift GTR over a pre-facelift GTR? I gotta say, and again, I do have a lot of experience with pre-facelift GTRs. I think right now it's not worth it because of the $15,000 to $20,000 premium you pay for a car like this compared to the pre-facelift. But in a year or two, when these prices drop more, 100% you should buy the post facelift car. I mean, it is night and day, in my opinion, over the pre facelift for the amount of money you're gonna pay in a year or two. I mean, you have to think, you know, I would say in about 2 to 3 years when the new car comes out, these cars are going to drop significantly in value. And that's when you hop on this thing immediately. I mean, honestly, I was never the craziest fan of the GTR. I always liked the GTR. After driving this, it pretty much solidifies in my mind that I should definitely have one as a daily. It is so much